Welcome back to Election Countdown, View from the Right. I'm David Brody of the Christian Broadcasting Network. Let's start a discussion of the conservative future, or some say lack of same, with this poll. There it is, 56% of the country say they are conservatives. Only 37% describe themselves as liberals. So with so many conservatives around here, why do so many feel outnumbered? Is there an identity crisis, Amanda, going on? I mean, there seems to be reach for the Tums for many conservatives.
Well, I think the whole Republican primary was an identity crisis for the party. But I like to be optimistic. I think there are points of light existing. If you look at the guys who were protesting all August long, to get, gas prices down. If you look at the guys that fought the bailout, I mean, those are the guys who are going to be the future of the party. And I think they're ready to go fight regardless of what happens in November.
I wonder if that House Republican situation where McCain went back and suspended his campaign and there was all that consternation about what was going on in the House, Kevin. I mean, that seemed to crystallize.
Those are tactics. And I think where we've suffered, and I think what the rebuilding phase that we're going to go through, which will have to be a robust one, is going to have to be about ideas. I mean, ultimately, what's the infrastructure that we're going to build? What are the ideas that we're going to build around? When I say infrastructure, we have to bring together these great coalitions of conservatives in a way that's going to be able to reach out and bring back those conservative Democrats who they didn't identify us with on the party rolls, but they still went to the polls and voted for us. The same with independents. That's going to be the charge that we have in these days after the campaign.
There's a number of problems. One is the RNC, for whatever reason, is not operating effectively at all. The second part of the problem is Thaddeus McCarter came in our paper this week and basically said McCain stabbed them in the back. He can't be their leader. He's the titular head of the party. As the nominee for president, he can't be the leader going forward. Who are they going to pick? He didn't know. He's a Boehner guy. A House member can't lead the entire party. They just don't have the ability to message that well. There's so many fragmentations. He also talked about the globalists versus the traditionalists. That sounded like a dissertation in political philosophy. I mean, but these are the sort of the questions they're wrangling with.
But then who are the future leaders in this Republican Party exactly, especially when it comes to President of the United States?
I mean, I would argue it's less about individuals right now, and it has to be about ideas. I mean, we have to find out, look, what's the answer to the question, why Republicans? A lot of Republicans can't answer that. I mean, and that's a big problem when you can't look at a voter in the eye and say, why me? Why my party? So we have to answer that question first, and then identify the individuals.
Than the Democrats right now. After the Bush administration, they really don't look different.
You're also, I think, seeing some of these fights. I mean, some of these fights have been playing out for decades, and we're seeing them manifest themselves again in different ways. I mean, there's been a fight among intellectual conservatives over the past year and a half about whether the party should be a more activist party, especially on economic issues, whether it should appeal to middle-class voters, whether it should look for things that would allow a Republican government to solve problems that would be consistent with a conservative philosophy. And then you have the more libertarian-leaning members of the party who say, look, I don't want government to get more involved. I don't want them to be doing this. I want them to get the heck out of the way. And that's a real fight. It's a robust fight, and it's a good fight to have.
I think there's an inevitable argument about, well, we have to somehow abandon the what people say was the Christian right part of the party, and I absolutely disagree with that. I think that the argument we have to make is that we have to bring those three pillars of the Reagan coalition together: social conservatives, economic conservatives, and national security conservatives, and then reach out and get those conservative Democrats like-minded independent. I would like to hear what Amanda says about that, because I think that's most critical. Is keeping those coalitions together.
Well, I think the big issue that will get everyone together again is going to be spending, and you can't make arguments about spending until the Bush administration is gone because of the expansion of government. That just has to be over to capture that message.
You have to be able to expand the tent. The tenet of the Melman RNC, which is the grassroots portion. We're talking about ideas. We're talking about getting more people out and getting more people into the party. His idea was to be more inclusive. Target minorities, look for minority candidates who have conservative values that we can run. Look to minority leaders who have conservative values that we can make, sort of precinct captains. This sort of thing just was completely oblivious to Mike Duncan and certainly to Mel Martinez. They had no mission on that, and they've lost. If they lose this campaign, it will be because they have no grassroots organization. There's nobody out there fighting for
So then what about this conservative meeting we're hearing about that's going to happen after the election? I mean, what are you all hearing about that meeting, and what's going to go down, as they say? And I mean, that's going to be an interesting, there'd be a fly on the wall in that meeting. Anybody?
Well, look, I think, the conservative meeting after the election is really a metaphor for these kind of discussions that are happening. all over the entire country. I think I forget who said it, but we're unlikely to see an individual leader emerge immediately. It's not going to happen after 3 weeks. If John McCain loses, conservatives aren't going to turn and say, okay, there's our new leader. It just doesn't happen that way. I think what you'll see is these kind of fights, the kind that we're talking about now, take place on a national level, and you'll see leaders emerge.
Will emerge, right?
Yeah, right.
But is there a tendency to head in a direction of that Sam's Club Republican that what Tim Pawlenty talks about, and Sarah Palin and Mike Huckabee seem to have a populist streak? They can reach social conservatives, but maybe they can play themselves as independent. I mean, is the movement going that way? I'm not suggesting Huckabee and Palin as much as I am the model of a Huckabee Palin.
I think that's using the term Walmart Republicans or Sam Club Republicans. It's a way to distill down the effort that we're not really talking in solution-oriented terms on a lot of the issues that people care about. It's the kitchen table issues of education, health care, the economy. All of those issues have to have Republican solutions. We have to have a Republican message for those solutions, and that's going to be the charge again in these weeks after the election, is whether or not we can put that together.
You have to have a message that is not talking points. It has to be something that can connect with people. A lot of these things that, even on the McCain campaign, sometimes they had good ideas, and you sort of look and I'm not understanding where he's going with this, because he cuts off and he goes to the next line in the talking points. He doesn't elaborate. They have to be able to get out, get into communities. It's small. We talked about this a little earlier. Barack Obama's got 40 people in a small town. 40 people in a small town can kill your message in that town because they're working for you. They're working for your party. The Republican Party does not have that going on right now.
All right, guys, thanks. All right, hold those thoughts. We have the lightning round.